I call the 2,455th meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 within city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card for those at City Hall or emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. Translation services are also available in multiple languages. Please see the information on the slide for details. We generally ask for 48 hours advance notice to provide translation services. For anyone who may have tuned in for the annexation that was listed under business items, please note that this item has been removed from the agenda and will be rescheduled to a date yet to be determined. With that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. And with that, I will move on to announcements. Join the Llewellyn Neighborhood District Association at their annual Concert in the Park series each Wednesday in August, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at Ball Michelle Park. Tomorrow's concert features the Portland School of Rock House Band. Each concert includes food for purchase from Hearth and Soul Pizza, and I will note that it shows it on the slide that they actually have added a concert on September 2nd for one that was canceled earlier this month due to smoke. So they are actually still have 3 concerts to go in the Llewellyn neighborhood. Join the Ardenwald Johnson Creek Neighborhood District Association at their annual Concert in the Park series each Thursday in August, beginning at 6:30 p.m. in Ardenwald Park. This Thursday's concert features the Bottle Blonde Quartet of 7, who play an eclectic mix of Latin. I think something's probably missing there. I think it's more than just Latin, but an eclectic mix of music. Each concert also includes food for sale from Milwaukie Pizza Company, Freehand Bakery, and Luna's Ice Cream. Kids of all ages are invited to attend an outdoor comedy, magic, and juggling show this Thursday, August 20th, at the Scott Park Amphitheater next to Ledding Library, featuring Angel Ocasio. The show begins at 10:30 a.m. Also on Thursday, join the North Clackamas Watersheds Council for a walking tour of the Kellogg Creek Restoration Project from 5:45 to 6:45 p.m. Attendees will learn about the project's benefits for the community and urban wildlife, along with the project's timeline. If you are interested in attending, a link to register is available on the city's event calendar at milwaukieoregon.gov. Everyone is invited to attend a one-day car show at the Milwaukie Community Center and North Clackamas Park this Saturday, August 22nd, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., with all proceeds going to the Meals on Wheels program. The event is family-friendly with live music at the Sarah Height Rose Garden and concessions for purchase. All incoming kindergartners are invited to an event at the Ledding Library on Saturday, August 29th from 10 a.m. to noon. This new event will feature free books, crafts, games, library card signups, and more. A new engagement opportunity has been added to the city's online platform, Engage Milwaukie, to help build a more prepared community. Through a survey and mapping exercise, the city seeks to better understand the places, people, and relationships that you rely on for support in both everyday life and in times of crisis. Please stop by Engage Milwaukie, it's engagemilwaukee.com, I believe, to tell your story and help the city become more resilient. For more information about each of these events, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukeeoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. I have a couple other announcements too that are things I wanted to share before we move to the haiku. So I did just talk about this event, this car Meals on Wheels or Wheels for Meals car show. I just wanted to give it an extra boost because I think it's a first time event to support the Meals on Wheels program. As folks who have been following the Parks District know, the programming for older adults at Milwaukie Community Center has been cut and is facing more cuts. And the Milwaukie Community Center Foundation has become a real mainstay of that programming. They donated $180,000 last year to NCPRD, and they have pledged $300,000 this year. So this event, this car show this weekend is a new way they're trying to raise money. They also do bingo and other things through the year, special dinners and things through the year. But I didn't feel like this event has had a lot of promotion, so I just wanted to give it a little bit of extra promotion because I think they've been working hard on it, and it should be a fun event. And then I have this this big plaque, which I will not read to you, but last week I was at a week ago, I was at the Oregon Mayors Association conference, and Milwaukie is a member of what's called the League of Oregon Cities, and it's probably not something the average person out there knows or cares that much about, but the League of Oregon Cities is the organization that represents all cities in the state in terms of, they provide training opportunities, they do lobbying in Salem, they keep us informed of what's going on in Salem, they do comparative documents that are really useful for us, like comparing, sewer rates or comparing, compensation or just all kinds of different reports and things. So they are an important association for cities around the state. Last year, they turned 100 years old. They had their 100th anniversary, their 100th year conference in downtown Portland last October. What I didn't know until I went to the mayor's conference last week is that Milwaukie was one of 25 cities that actually founded the LOC in 1925. And so those 25 cities all got a special sort of commendation, thank you, resolution from the Board of Governors of the League of Oregon Cities. So I will turn that over to the city manager to determine where's a proper place to put that. But I just wanted to share that. Thought it was kind of cool that we were one of the original 25 cities that founded the LOC. And then one final thing I wanted to share, just in the sort of feel good. I get mail. I will tell you, yesterday I came into my office, after the weekend, and I had a piece of mail about a litigation filed against the city. I had a piece of mail about warning me about how dangerous it is to dig without checking for pipelines. And then I had a really lovely piece of mail from a 7-year-old who lives in the, I believe she lives in the Lake Road neighborhood. Her name is Clara, and I'm gonna hold it up just so you can see her lovely rainbow, her lovely artwork. And her letter says, "Dear Mayor Lisa Beatty, I think Milwaukie is the best place in the universe. Love, Clara, age 7." So one of the best pieces of mail I've ever gotten, and I just wanted to share it.
Clara, you're right.
Yes, you are. You are. Counselor, if I could ask you to slide that out of the way. Thank you. All right. With that, if nobody else has other announcements, we'll go to the haiku. 7 neighborhoods, many voices, one city, together we grow. Thank you, Anonymous. I don't know who Anonymous is, but thank you. I'm always looking for haiku. All right, we're moving on to community comments. Council will now hear community comments on city business topics that are not on the agenda. Before we begin, is there any follow-up from the August 4th comments, Ms. Sager?
Mayor, there were no comments provided on August 4th. We received one piece of general correspondence between that meeting and this one from Mr. Piers Chawla about bikes, specifically electric bikes and pedestrian safety. That was included in your packet. I wanted to share just a couple things that the Chief Burdick and I talked about on the heels of that comment. So e-bikes are definitely kind of a topic. I know it was a topic at C4 recently. They're definitely proliferating. I'm an e-bike rider. I think they're wonderful. But I think more and more as more different types of e-bikes are hitting the market and it's a bit of an unregulated space, some cities are seeing some nuisance behavior or dangerous behavior with electrified bicycles, including some of our neighboring cities. As of before today, the line I had heard was that we weren't seeing a lot of that in Milwaukie. The chief did say that we are starting to see an uptick of some concerning behavior. So we are in talks with our neighboring cities as they are also looking at some code updates that give cities a little more ability to ensure safety on our roads and ensure that roads are shared safely between pedestrians, cyclists, and all users of our multimodal system. So I'll keep you apprised as I learn that, and we'll put things on the council agenda to bring those forward. Specifically, the comments raised and the message received, and then the mayor also followed up with a few screenshots of some messaging she's received about the intersection, the portion of the trolley trail that goes by River Road and Bluebird, that's really the crossing of 99E to get into Kronberg Park. We're pleased to see that ODOT has finished the work in that section. It is a lot safer than it was under construction, but it's still a very small island for pedestrians and bikes to wait together on, and we have heard concerns. There are many concerns shared on this social media post about continuing safety there. So Chief Burdick's going to deploy some of our patrol and specifically our bike patrol officers to that area to really observe the intersection. If we catch any bad behavior, make sure we're enforcing on that, and also just kind of gather more data that we can both take into account for ourselves and our own regulations, but also share with ODOT and NCPRD who manage the trolley trail. So those are just some updates from the city side there.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. Glad to hear they're going to take a look at it. Okay, with that, I don't see anyone here who's probably wanting to make public comment. Do we have anybody on Zoom who would be wanting to make public comment?
No audience on Zoom, but I do want to note that Councilor Massey did join the Zoom call just about the time we started the meeting. So
okay, great.
I'll respond the whole time, but there's no comments.
Okay, great. Well, then I will forego the rest of that script and move on to the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda is a short one. It includes the minutes of the City Council July 14th, 2026 study session, and a resolution acting as the local contract review board authorizing a contract with D&D Concrete and Utilities, Inc. for the Monroe Street Greenway Central Segment Project, CIP number 2023-T38. Does any council member wish to remove a consent agenda item? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. I didn't hear Counselor Massey, but he didn't say no, so I'm going to assume he said aye. You heard aye? Okay, great. So the consent agenda passes unanimously. And with that, we will move on to the, oh my goodness, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances update, PFAS, or PFAS, PFAS. You say tomato, I say tomato. And that's Public Works Director Peter Passarelli, Engineer Tanya Batty, and Water Manager Stephen Mauder.
Sorry, couldn't draw up a bigger audience.
Well, thank you, Mayor Beatty and council members. I'm Peter Passarelli. I'm the Public Works Director. This evening, we've got a little bit of a presentation on PFAS. Joining me this evening is Tanya Batty, our civil engineer, and Steve Motter, our water manager. Steve's been with the city for 2 years. I don't know if we've had the opportunity to introduce him before, but he's been a great addition. He brings a great skill set and lots of experience in the water industry. So glad to have him here. So tonight, I wanted to talk about PFAS and give you an update on where we are on the project. I think Jen may have given a brief update in July during a CIP update. It's going to go into a little bit more detail. So we'll talk a little bit about the regulatory environment that we've seen some change in, talk about some of the sampling results that we've seen, and then Tanya's gonna walk you through the feasibility study that we've been working on, and then we'll talk a little bit about our next steps. So the regulatory environment in PFAS, as you may remember, is a contaminant that is ubiquitous in the environment. It bioaccumulates, and for the longest time, it hadn't been regulated by the EPA. In 2024, the EPA adopted rules to regulate it within drinking water, and they've also were in the process of adopting rules to regulate it in other places. Some of those things have paused, and the EPA is also sort of changing some of those things. But back in 2013, the city sampled for PFAS under what's called the Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule. So 2013, 13 years ago. At that time, we did not detect any PFAS in our drinking water. Part of that reason was that the minimum detection levels of PFAS were at like an order of magnitude higher, so like 20 parts per trillion and 40 parts per trillion. That was like the minimum detection level, so we didn't detect any. In 2021, we had to resample under this UCMR 5, the Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule number 5. And in that go around, we actually found some. And one of the reasons why was the minimum detection level was lowered down to about 2 parts per trillion, I think, maybe even a little bit lower than that. And the sampling that we took in the 2021 sampling actually happened in 2023. But the rule went into place in 2021, and cities had, 2 years to sample for those. So we noticed it in 2023. I gave an update to council, I think in March or sometime around then. And what we saw was sample results that were just over what they were considering as maybe the maximum contaminant level. So we were seeing results in like 4 to 8 parts per trillion, maybe one that was 10 parts per trillion at one point in time at wells. So in 2024, as I mentioned, the EPA adopted those rules. There were 6 PFAS contaminants and a hazard index that calculated a number based on those different contaminants. We have only really found 2 contaminants that are at a level that are, I'll say substantial and immediate, that would require us to treat, and that's PFAS, PFOS, and PFOA, PFOA. And they're a long, complicated name, but so we're seeing those at just levels above, like 4 parts per trillion, like I said. In 2025, with the new administration, EPA announced an intent to extend the compliance schedule. In 2024, as part of that rule that went into place, cities public water supplies were required to be in compliance by 2028.
It was originally 2027.
2027.
And then it bumped to 2029.
2020.
And then they want to bump it again.
Yeah, so 2029, that was the 2024 rule. So they've announced the intent to extend that compliance period, and now this year they're going through that rulemaking process to amend that rule. One of the things that's going to require us to do to extend to 2031 the compliance schedule is file an extension request. And what that would mean is we just submit a letter to OHA, probably through OHA to the EPA, requesting an extension for compliance. We're not quite certain yet on how that's all going to play out, because they're still in that rulemaking place, and we've identified, we've got a schedule that's outlined to still sort of try to hit that 2029 target date. It's an aggressive schedule. 2031 would be better, but we're working towards doing that. One of the other things that they've changed is they're removing 4 other. They were wanting to move 4 other PFAS compounds from the water piece. The other thing that's coming up in 2026 is they've announced another UCMR 6, another sampling protocol. And as I mentioned, that's the unregulated contaminants. These are contaminants that the EPA has identified as perhaps that they might be problematic and have health effects. So they want to have public water utilities and private water utilities sample to see what's out there in the drinking water. This go around includes some really short chain PFAS type contaminants, and some other pesticide byproducts, I'll say.
Does short chain mean short-lived? No. Okay.
Yeah. And that is one of the things with PFAS. PFAS is something that is really hard to break down, right? It's not easy to break down. It's not like the volatile organic compounds that we currently treat our water for, that you can aerate and it'll, going through that process, it'll dissipate out of the water. So that's sort of the regulatory environment that we're working on under right now. Our sampling, as I mentioned, the 2025 UCMR sampling that we did in 2023, we monitored 2 times over a 12-month period, 5 to 7 months apart. Those were taken at what we call the entry points into the distribution systems. So that means at the upper treatment plant, after we've treated the water, where it's going into the distribution system, at the lower treatment plant, after it comes out of the treatment process that goes into the distribution system. And then at well 6, basically it's the water coming out of well 6, because we don't really treat it, but after we've disinfected it and put it into the distribution system.
Now remind me, well 6, is that Stanley?
That's at Stanley,
Okay.
yes, yeah. So as with the adopted rule, in 2024, they adopted, national primary drinking water standards, maximum contaminant levels. And the 2 ones of concern, the PFOA and the PFAS, they set limits at 4 parts per trillion. So that's what we're trying to target and get below when we look at the feasibility study to treat. But there's also some minimum triggers, I'll say reporting triggers. If you're sampling and you see, I think it's 2 parts per trillion, then you have to continue to monitor and sample. If you don't see that, you don't have to sample. So the sample that we take at the lower treatment plant is blended water from our wells 4 and 7. We bring that water in there, and then we treat it for VOCs and disinfect and put it out into the system. At the upper treatment plant, it's our well 2R. We call it 2R is the new well that we drilled several years ago. 3 and 5, those are collected after the treatment, and then well 6 not treated. So both the well data and the entry point data are pretty much the same, and we've presented that in a follow-on table.
So can I just ask, say wells 4 and 7, you're sampling it when it comes out of the plant, so you don't know it's blended water. Could there be like all of the contamination coming from one well and not from the other, or because they're from the same aquifer, there's no point in trying to determine that?
We have sampled the wells.
Oh, you have?
And the individual well, and
Okay.
we've noted those contaminants in each well.
At every well,
And
okay.
at varying different levels, right?
Okay.
So one of the treatment technologies that Tanya will briefly discuss is blending water. You know, if you have water that's not as contaminated as another source, is you can blend that and get below the target. We could probably do that from time to time, but not consistently hit the targets all the time. So our initial monitoring under this regulation requires us to complete a 12-month period of samples once a quarter, 2 to 4 months apart, by 2027. So I think it's April of 2027 that has to be completed. We're in that process, going through and doing that. And then that's sort of that initial monitoring. And then there's the compliance monitoring that we have to do a quarterly sample at each of those entry points. And we're compliant if the running annual average of those samples is below that maximum contaminant level, so that 4 parts per trillion. And the rule also speaks to opportunities to reduce the annual if you have 4 consecutive compliance samples, and reduce it to every 3 years if you have 3 consecutive annual samples that are less than half the MCL. I don't think where we are right now we're gonna see that. So that's the sort of the sampling requirements. Here are the results that we've seen since 2024, and these are at the entry points into the well. So we've got it broken down into the lower treatment plants, wells 4 and 7, the upper treatment plant, that UTP, wells 2, 3, and 5, and then well 6. And then the orange, or the orange is sort of like the caution. We're above that reporting level. And then the red means we're above the MCL on those samples. So early on when we talked about this, and when we had done the UCMR samples at well 6 in 2023, we didn't detect any PFAS or PFAS contaminants there. Since June, though, of this, June of 25, we have seen it. It has popped up. And we do have a sample in October of 25 that we think is, doesn't seem right, because it's much higher than some of the other samples. So there may have been a lab error or a sampling error that had happened. But one of these, what came out of this, of seeing these items in wells, or seeing these contaminants in well 6, led us to further consider what we're going to do with well 6. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but what we're looking at in general is treating all the water at a consolidated facility. So,
So bringing water from Stanley back to Water Tower and then
Yeah,
back
that-
to Stanley.
bringing water back, yes, exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's certainly a capital expense in putting that pipe in, but there's some savings in terms of consolidation and not having two separate facilities where you're treating water. And then also, we're able to really tell the community that we're treating all of the water, everything's being
Right.
treated, right? So,
So can you speak to, or any of you, can you speak to the fluctuations? Like, and the months of no detect? Is it temperature? Is it the depth of the well? Is it, I mean, do we know? Maybe we don't know.
there's,
Does everybody have fluctuations like this? Is this pretty normal? Okay, okay,
I mean, we do have a limited set of samples.
yeah.
But I would say there's a couple things that could play in there. One, there's some sampling errors, you know, in terms of how we've taken a sample, a lab issues. But there's also the seasonal fluctuations of groundwater that may cause water, contaminants to migrate easier or, and then depending on how much we're pumping, right? How much we're pumping from wells may draw more. And maybe that backs down as we go along. So, yeah, so any other questions on this, on these sampling pieces right here?
Any questions, anyone? Scott, you'll let us know if Robert raises his hand? Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I
Yeah.
did have a question. And maybe this will be covered in the next piece, but what type of treatment or improvements have to happen to Stanley so that we know when the water goes back, it can be stored there without any further contamination?
Yeah, so the water that we pump from well 6 that will pump to the upper treatment plant will go through the same treatment process that all the other wells go through. And then when we pump that back, it's basically entering the distribution system, so it has to meet those requirements. And that water will either go into the distribution system on its way out there or back into the reservoir out there. So,
Okay, so there's minimal capital improvement that would need to be made to be able to accommodate that, aside from the pipe that would move the water
there's some
out
raw
of
water
that?
transmission lines. There's probably some pump modifications that we might need to make at well 6 to
Okay.
make sure that we were able to pump all of the water there effectively to the treatment process, but
But the tank itself
Yeah.
was recently relined and it's
Yes.
all good.
Yeah.
that tank is all good, yeah.
Okay,
Could
okay.
actually be an
That's great.
improvement, that's half of our, summary.
Yes.
Half of our storage capacity is that reservoir, and we'll actually be able to use it more like it's designed if we do it this way. We just need to change like short section of piping to have the treated water go back into it. It's very minimal,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, cool.
Half of our water, is that
Storage.
really?
Mm-hmm.
So that's as much as the up in the air tank and the 40th and Harvey tank together?
Correct, yeah.
Wow. It doesn't look that big to me. Okay.
So one of the studies that we put together was a feasibility study to look at how do we treat the water. And we worked with RH2. And this feasibility study was also a component to this Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund. So we had to go through this study and do that and identify how we're going to treat the water, to utilize the money that they have to loan for for PFAS. So I will turn it over to Tanya.
Hello. So as Peter mentioned, we started with this treatment feasibility study, a year ago now. And sort of the first kind of go, no go point was, are we doing consolidated treatment with all of the capital costs that involves, or are we looking at a more dispersed treatment where we would treat at each of the individual locations? And pretty quickly that decision was made for us. There is not space at the lower treatment plant. It's right there at the intersection of Oak, Railroad, over by the Public Safety Building, and it's just not that big of a space. We already have VOC towers there treating. We have our well facility, so we did not have room at the lower treatment plant. So now we're looking at consolidation or purchasing a hydraulically advantaged property, which we don't have time to do, to scope a spot, find it. Are we talking having to like eminent domain it away from somebody? Like, none of that was really very appealing. So we're gonna make 40th and Harvey work because that's what we got. And then for the compliance strategy, again, as Peter mentioned, there's like a non-treatment compliance where you could blend some water together. But again, because of our individual sample results and the volume of water that we need to get out to customers, it wasn't really a viable option, given that most of our water comes from 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7, and they're all contaminated wells. Go ahead. So these are the treatment goals that we set out. We want to treat all of our water rights. We now know that well 6 also has some PFAS contamination, and we don't really know what that's going to look like moving forward, if it's going to stay at these lower levels, if we're going to continue to have these occasional spikes, if it's going to slowly trend upwards over time. Well 8 is the other well that we have in our network. We're not currently pumping from it very much, and the samples that we've collected from well 8 were non-detect. However, it's located in a high-risk area for PFAS. It's actually the highest risk well that we've got. And so we do have some concern that if we were to rehabilitate that well and start it pumping again, that it would also wind up contaminated with PFAS. We would have to treat it from there. So our plan for the consolidated treatment plant is to treat for all of our water rights, which is about 6.3 million gallons per day. 7.3 if you include well 8. Centralized treatment is going to bring quite a lot of efficiencies. I know Steve's excited about it, that we're gonna move all of our water team up there, so they'll be right next to all of the equipment that they need to be monitoring and working on, and the valves will be right there. They're not gonna have to drive all over town to get to where they need to go. It'll also lower the capital costs because instead of having people negotiating different treatment sites, it'll all be in one place, and it'll be lower maintenance costs as well. This is, I think, most obviously realized when we start talking about the new chlorination system. Part of this consolidated treatment is going to include a new disinfection system because right now we're using chlorine gas, which is not very safe for our operators. It's not very safe for our residents. So we're going to move to on-site generation, and figuring out on-site generation at well 6 was going to be rather challenging just because it's not a large enough volume of water. We are a small city, and so we're already looking at kind of the smallest units that they have available, and then to have an even smaller unit cut off for well 6 was going to also raise some logistical issues. So by consolidating all of our treatment, we're kind of removing that, and we're right sizing for the equipment that's available, and reducing the burden on our staff. And then, of course, that the finished water will be clean. That's our goal. It will be compliant with our water. Go ahead and advance.
No, is there no, I mean, you have here less than half of MCL. Is there no getting to zero?
You could get to 0.
Yeah.
And, that's the goal that they've officially published, like the MCL goal, which was on the data table, is 0. But, if they knocked you out of compliance every time you hit 0.01, that would be really arduous for a lot of people. So if you can kind of create a reasonable path to compliance, I think that's where we're at. And certainly
our treatment goal is going to be 0, but knowing that we're getting the finished water out, you know, that'll give us some operational flexibility in case we see breakthrough in one of the vessels that we weren't expecting. And so, yeah.
I think though.
Oh, you're not.
I was gonna say, in general, once we have this facility constructed and in operation, we'll be below that, half that MCL, we'll be below 2 parts per trillion. But that's like that's sort of like the target. That's like where we want to stay at, and that's, you know, and if it's below that is good. We don't want to go above that.
Okay, so the results of the feasibility study. We looked in depth at media filtration and membrane filtration. There were 3 media that we sampled using a rapid small scale column test. So basically they take that media, they grind it up extra fine, and then they run kind of an accelerated model of what it would look like. So over the course of a month, you can see like maybe what 6 months of use would look like. And for that, we tested granular activated carbon, anion exchange, and a modified clay-based media. The other type of filtration is membrane filtration. We did not test those. They were knocked out kind of in the more like conceptual analysis, mostly because it's going to be operationally complex to run. There are pre and post treatments required. So we'd have to chlorinate, run it through the VOC towers, dechlorinate, no, those are both chlorination, fine. So chlorinate, run it through the VOC tower, run it through this membrane filtration, and then we'd have to treat on the other side because when you have membranes that fine, it also filters out things that you need in the water, and so we'd have to like put it back and readjust our pH and do things to make the water suitable before it goes out to distribution. And then of course there's a certain amount of recovery loss. You're basically creating a concentrated water on the back end. So the filtered water goes through, but there's this concentrated water on the back end. So we'd be losing some of our water capacity because there would be this concentrate that we need to dispose of. And that concentrate would be going down the sewer. And as Peter mentioned earlier, they're looking at other ways to start regulating PFAS. And one of the concerns is that our sewer treatment plant might stop accepting that high concentration PFAS water, and then we're kind of out of luck. So those were knocked out. For our granular activated carbon, it is efficient at removing long chain PFAS. It also removes short chain PFAS, which, you know, as we mentioned, are coming up in UCMR 6. They are the largest vessels at 27 feet tall, which also means that if for some reason down the line we wanted to switch from granular activated carbon to another material, we would have the space to do it because those require less space. So it's kind of building on the more conservative side. Granular activated carbon is a readily available and inexpensive material. It's been around for a long time. It's used to treat a lot of things. This is the only media that can be regenerated. The other ones need to be disposed of. And again, as we talked about earlier, they're starting to look into some RCRA rules. So the other media is being disposed of. They could end up being hazardous waste, which could double or triple the cost of that disposal. Whereas this can be regenerated and reused, and we get this like recycled benefit as well. And GAC also treats VOCs. So we might have the option to remove our aeration towers that we're currently using to treat VOCs, which would again simplify our treatment train and get us to compliance faster. I think the cons, it is the largest vessel size, which means we need to install the largest vessel. It may leach arsenic. We're going to look into how much of an issue that actually is. It may leach arsenic, yes. It's just one of, Sometimes, yeah, it's a funny one. It's like fertilizer adds a bunch of copper and then you're stuck treating for copper because you fertilized your stormwater bed. Just, yeah.
Sorry, when you say a 27-foot vessel, are those upright towers like what we have for now for the
Well, they're 12
aeration?
feet wide instead of being like.
Oh, they're 27 feet
They're
wide,
27
not
feet.
27 feet tall.
They're 27 feet tall, but they're 12 feet wide.
12 feet wide,
Yeah,
okay,
they're quite large.
okay.
But I think the water tower is like 24 feet, 25 feet.
Okay, so they're roughly the same, just
Yeah,
bigger
is the-
around.
Yeah, as the concrete reservoir.
Yeah.
They're about the same height.
Yeah. Okay.
We also looked at anion exchange. Again, effective at removing long and short chain PFAS. A much smaller vessel would be required. This is one that is not chlorine tolerant, so we'd have to chlorinate, run it through the VOC towers, dechlorinate, treat it for PFAS, and then rechlorinate again before it goes out to distribution, which would not be terribly efficient.
And you have to chlorinate before it goes through the VOC towers for that treatment to work?
To inhibit biological growth there's like balls in there that help break up the water. And if those get a bunch of stuff growing on them, it doesn't work as well.
Mossy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We're about to start testing if we actually need to chlorinate before the towers, but we don't know yet if like how long we could get away with not chlorinating before it runs through that treatment. And then, as I mentioned before, this is something that would need to be landfilled or incinerated, and so we might be paying hazardous materials costs down the road for that to happen. And then for the modified clay-based media, again, works well for long and short chains. It's a smaller vessel. This one, because it's such a new technology, there might be other funding streams available for it. That said, it is a pretty new technology, and that's why one of the reasons that they're offering this extra funding for people to test it out. It is chlorine tolerant though, so we could remove that dechlorination step between the VOC towers and the PFAS treatment. It is a proprietary product. It's newer and not as well tested, and it will need to be landfilled. It cannot be incinerated, so that will need to be landfilled. See future hazardous waste costs.
I think the other thing I would add to that too, the media is not as readily available as the granular activated carbon. So.
Yeah.
Well, and proprietary product means we're subject to price increases over time.
Yes.
There's not multiple vendors or whatever. The other stuff has multiple vendors, I take it.
I mean, they all have multiple vendors, but yeah. There's a lot of places you can get GAC.
Yeah.
A lot of different kinds of GAC that you can get. So here's the short version, or I should say, consolidated version that also includes costs. These are the costs for a 4,000 GPM system. We're actually looking at closer to 5,000 GPM because, as I mentioned before, we want to be able to treat for all of our water rates. So once well 8 gets up and running, or once those water rates start entering the treatment system, that'll be closer to 5,000.
So that's gallons per minute?
That's
GPM?
gallons per minute.
Okay.
And then you can see that, the capital cost up front for GAC is lower, and then the cost to replace the media is also lower. So, any questions?
Yeah, leave this up for just a minute. Let us.
I would say the other thing too, so with GAC and the ion exchange and the clay media, those all require replacement of that material at some point in time. So, we're looking at, with the GAC, somewhere between 3 to 5 years that we're needing to replace that material to make sure that the treatment is effective, right?
Is that Councilor Massey? Okay. Councilor Massey, please.
Yeah, I'm kind of focused on the...
Louder. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Not very well. Hold on. Scott's trying to adjust the volume.
Test, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, test out. Is that okay?
That's better. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll lean over a little bit. So I'm kind of focused on the supply chain issue here. And when I saw the cost for this, this project, which was, did I see that right, was 32 million?
Yes.
Yeah. So I got to thinking about this, and I said, wow, we're going to have all of these water districts across the country installing, some form of treatment over, a similar time frame. And, just some back of the envelope math tells me that this is like a huge nationwide, capital improvement project. And so I just kind of looked up to see how many water districts there were around the country, and it's roughly 5,000. And I don't mean for this to be a definitive, dollar amount, but if you just take 5,000 and multiply it times 30 million, it ends up being a $150 billion project across the country. So I guess, is there no concern about the supply chain being able to deliver this to all of these water districts?
I think that's a really good question. There are always concerns with, cost escalation as, demand increases for certain products. We have had some discussions about that, and I think we have it on like our risk matrix of something to sort of keep track of. As part of this project, we have the first phase of the project generally is focused on the transmission line construction, the site prep at the 40th and Harvey site, but also purchasing some long lead time equipment. So we're looking at purchasing these GAC units ahead of time, and maybe some other materials. The granular activated carbon is something that's relatively, it's got a very good availability compared to the other products that we were looking at, the anion exchange media and the clay-based media. The granular activated carbon's used already for many, many different types of water treatment and purposes and environmental cleanup purposes. So it's a readily available product that's out there. I will say not all water utilities are faced with having to treat for PFAS. It is based on, there are not as, I think there's maybe less than 10 water utilities in Oregon that are looking to treat for PFAS.
Oh, really?
The last time that I looked.
Wow.
Portland is not in that boat to treat for PFAS. So it's really dependent upon the water source and what that underlying contamination might be there. So, but
Well, that's significantly smaller than, my estimates then, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's a fair point, though, the cost escalation, and that's something that is on our mind in terms of getting this project done as efficiently and as trying to manage the costs on the project so we don't have large cost overruns.
Thank you.
And I'll just add that, there are a lot of other utilities here, and that's one of the reasons that federal funding is available, is this is a nationwide issue that a lot of people are dealing with. Some of them are further along in the process than we are, some of them are further back. And depending on your specific water quality as well, you may not choose granular activated carbon. It may make more sense for you to use a membrane treatment, or you may only have one contaminated well and be able to blend it. So there's also that piece to factor.
If there's only 10 in Oregon, are they all on the same aquifer we're on?
No.
No, okay.
I would like to add one thing too, with the vessels we're choosing, the ones you're speaking of, they're 26 feet tall. That gives us the flexibility to use the 3 different medias. So if we can't get something, we can get something else. Or
Right.
if, let's say our water changes, we can change to that different media to be more effective, so.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. You build the bigger thing up front so that you don't have to upsize in 15 years or whatever. Yeah.
So these are some of the life cycle cost analysis that were done as part of the PFAS feasibility study. You can see that GAC, and especially if we regenerate it instead of disposing of it, is just sort of trending down along the bottom. And that includes a change out every 5 years. I think we based on our PFAS loading and the results of the rapid small-scale column test, we would only need to change out media every 7 years. The manufacturer usually recommends 3 to 5, and then we're going to do some additional pilot testing and see how the VOC treatment, because we did select GAC, that when we combine the treatment and use the GAC to treat for both VOCs and PFAS, see how that lowers the life cycle of our carbon as well, so that we can move forward with the appropriate budgeting. But this is budgeting over, I think, 25 years based on a 5-year media change out, which is the manufacturer's maximum recommendation.
What's the yellow? It says 1X.
Anion exchange.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Any other questions on that? I think we've already mentioned where we're headed with treatment is consolidating those facilities. And I just wanted to really sort of talk about some of those other benefits in terms of consolidation beyond just treating for PFAS. So, first and foremost, it's going to replace some aging treatment facilities that we have that are, pushing, by 2030, they're going to be 40 years old. Our upper treatment plant, lower treatment plant, those treatment processes were installed back in 1989, 1990 to meet this VOC requirement. So we're going to get those replaced and have up-to-date industry standard treatment facilities. The other thing Tanya mentioned a little bit about is, we treat our water with chlorine gas to disinfect the water, to remove any sort of, biological contamination that might be in there. We use chlorine gas to do that. So that's this project we're going to shift how we disinfect from a chlorine gas to a solution that's going to be generated on site. That's much safer to handle for our staff, but also safer in the general environment. You don't have to worry about chlorine leaks, a gas leak or anything like that.
I had written a question. Yeah. What does it mean you're going to generate it on site? You're going to generate it from what?
It's a brine solution, so we're basically buying very clean salt, like NaCl salt. It sits there on a pallet until we're ready to use it, and then there's a large vessel that is filled with very clean water, and that salt, and it makes a super concentrated brine, and then they run an electric current through that super concentrated brine to make hypochlorite concentration solution. But it's at a concentration that is not considered hazardous, whereas the kind of alternative to that is that you have bulk hypochlorite delivered, but that's at a concentration where you start needing specialized equipment. The people who are around it need to be wearing like PPE, specialized PPE, because it's so concentrated and could be harmful. I think even when we were touring, just the fumes of being in the room were pretty intense. So staying away from that as well. Do you have anything to add, Steve?
So you've got this intense brine, but you're not putting it in the water. You're somehow off-gassing it to the water. How are you using it to disinfect?
You run this concentrated brine solution through, it's like a canister, and there's different, it's kind of like almost, I think of it as like a battery where you're running this electric current through it. And so it gets you that concentrated chlorine, and then
there's a that causes a chemical reaction, but it stays as a water-based solution instead of a gas. So that chemical reaction, by adding the charge to the brine, creates a sodium hypochlorite solution.
Okay.
And then that can be used to,
And
you just add a little bit of that to the water, and then you get your free chlorine once it dilutes.
And sodium hypochlorite is commonly used in to disinfect swimming pools, right?
Yeah.
So that's a common.
Okay. Thank you.
So the chemical handling, just improve operator safety as well. We do have a lot of, I'll just say in our facilities, a lot of components that no longer are up to date with current code, electrical systems and pumps and those types of things. So we'll have something more modern that will be safer, provide some additional safety. And then, it's going to simplify our maintenance. We're going to have one site that we have to maintain to treat water, as opposed to two different sites. And then, believe it or not, it does improve redundancy because we're building that into the process. We're building the units, these GAC units, to have that redundancy in place to make sure that we're treating the water. And the sodium hypochlorite system has some redundancy built into that as well. So it's easy that we're not reliant on some supply chain issues that had popped up several years ago as well for chlorine. It does improve that. We'll have some additional operational flexibility. And what I mean by that, the plant will have some design where there will be actually some additional storage that will be below the ground that will allow us to pump to different parts of the system, to pump to the elevated storage tank directly to the system or back to the Stanley Reservoir. So all those different types of things will have improved energy efficiency and also have that room for other future treatment technologies, treatment requirements that might pop up. So what does this all look like? So the big piece that we're working on right now is our raw water pipeline. And the area that you see in blue shows the alignments of pipelines from the lower treatment plants, or I should say wells 4 and 7 and well 6, all the way up to the upper treatment plant at 40th and Harvey. One of the items I wanted to mention on the Stanley piece that we feel like we're trying to move that as quickly as possible because of potential. We want to get that pipe in the ground before that section of the Monroe Greenway happens. So we're working hard to get that pipe those pipes put into the ground before that work gets started. That is the most direct spot. And there's also, because we had that Monroe Greenway project in there, some of the restoration work that Monroe Greenway is going to do in terms of paving will get taken up by. We won't have to do that as part of that project for some parts of the project. So a lot of water lines that are going to be going back into the ground to go up to 40th and Harvey. Any questions on that?
Do you mentioned a pump, so this isn't showing any topography. I guess in my head, I'm thinking everything is uphill to 40th and Harvey. to 40th and Harvey. Is that true or not really?
From the lower treatment plant, it's definitely uphill.
Yeah.
From well 6, I think it sort of varies. It's going to go up and down and back up, I think.
And do you just have a pump at the end point? You don't have to have intermediate pumps in Monroe Street?
We'll just have pumps from the wells. The wells will directly pump to the upper treatment plant.
Okay. Other questions? No?
And then the layout at the 40th and Harvey site. And so this is very conceptual right now. So, but basically what we're looking at is having to demolish some facilities that are currently existing out there, and having an operations building for staff that's sort of on the north side of the property next to the concrete reservoir. We're still working through some of the details there. Our desire is to have that building connected to the treatment facility where you see it says pump room and chlorination room and the GAC treatment, well, the dots, yeah, we want that all connected together. And all under a roof. So there's no, light going out into the neighborhood. The operators that are at the facility don't have to walk outside to go inspect what's going on. So that's some of the things, some of the details that we're still working out. And then we have some maintenance and storage facilities also on the east side of the building. And then you can see underneath the blue dots, it says there's a backwash storage. Backwash is when we have to sort of clean out the filter. We'll push water through it to clean those out. And then there's also a clear well. Once the water's treated, that we'll have a space to store that and then pump out into the systems as we desire. So this has some impact on some tenants out there, I'll say. The police have stored some vehicles out there and they're going to need to move. We've identified some spaces there. The Friends of Library, they also are moving. We've been talking with Brent about that. Our facilities team has some space out there that they use. And once we're done, we hope that they're going to be back on that site to utilize that space. In the interim, they're going to be probably housed in one of our maintenance bays at Johnson Creek. But they have a site out there where they have a workshop that they do a lot of work.
Building that's along 40th is not being replaced. It's the same building.
No, that's going to be removed, that white building.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that will be demolished and
Okay.
replaced with something a little bit smaller,
Okay.
but it'll fit the needs. There's some current water infrastructure in the northern part of that building that will get removed, and we won't need that space anymore there. And then we have some trees. There's certainly some large trees out there that we're trying to protect as well. There's some significant redwoods out there. And then, Tanya mentioned our water team. We see this as their location to sort of to operate out of. And that, that certainly opens up some space at Johnson Creek if we need to have space for other needs out there. So, any questions on this layout?
How many people is that water team? I mean, how many people would be relocating?
Currently, there are eight staff members. Yeah, 9 including Steve. Yes.
Okay.
I do want to highlight, while we have the site plan up, that by selecting GAC and hopefully removing the VOC towers, we've significantly simplified what this looks like. We've got more space on site for people to move around, for large trucks to come, for GAC deliveries. When we were going to have to rebuild the VOC towers, it was going to require all of this staging where we put in the VOC towers and then we demolish the old ones, and then we could put in the new PFAS treatment. And it was like going to be a 2 or 3 step phased construction project. And by selecting GAC and simplifying all of that, we've gone down to 1 phase, which is going to make it much easier for us to hit or get close to our 2029 compliance deadline.
And those blue dots mean there's 10 of those treatment towers?
So I think the feasibility study recommended that we install all 10. It's 5 treatment trains, which have a lead vessel and a lag vessel. So the water goes through the first vessel, and then it goes through a second polishing vessel before it's sent out to distribution. So this is 5 treatment trains. They do about 1,000 gallons each. So we'll install all 5 of them anticipating that one day we'll be treating the full water rights. But for now, we will probably only have 4 of them in like regular rotation, and then we'll be able to move between them to make it easier for us to manage our change out. Or like we'll have a backup on site if one of the vessels starts to see some channeling and we can't resolve it. We can switch to a different vessel if we see premature breakthrough.
The one other thing I wanted to mention too, as we do this construction on this facility, we're also still treating water from this facility. So there's a lot of things that are going to be happening at this site. Our schedule, we're here in August of 2026. And we're working with RH2. RH2 is focused on the treatment facility. They're a consultant engineering team, and then WSC, Water Systems Consultant. They're the team that's building, putting together the design and for the raw water transmission line work and some of the well modifications that we're going to be doing. So we've got like sort of 2 groups of consultants working to bring us to 2029. April of 2029 is when that compliance date currently is scheduled. We do feel like there's probably a good chance that that's going to get pushed to 2031, but we're still trying to target that. So, and you can see the blue extending past that diamond there. That's because we think there's other phases of the project that will still be happening. So maybe some of the maintenance facilities might still be under construction past those dates. But the treatment system and construction commissioning, we've got that sort of scheduled out there it'll be tight, but.
Yeah, that's a lot of steps and a lot of stages for sure. Yeah.
And then Councilor Massey had mentioned and I think from the report, our staff report, about a $32 million project. This has gone up from, I think, when we last talked about it, and that part of that's related to the addition of that raw water transmission line from well 6 to the upper treatment plant. These are budgetary numbers. There's a lot of contingency built into these numbers. I will tell you that humans are really poor at budgeting numbers when they're at a conceptual level. And we're going to keep you informed as, the designs and estimates become more refined as we get closer to, nailing down individual components of design. But we feel like right now, this is a good sort of round number, $32 million. So.
What's the pad? How much padding did you do?
It depends on
what
some of the different work, but I would probably say 30 to 40% pad on some of those.
Fantastic.
Well, and it's also, is iterative the right word? So, they looked at, here are the biddable items, and then maybe there's 20 to 30% contingency on that, and then there's an extra 10% contingency on top of that to meet various federal requirements, depending on what ends up happening with our funding source, right? If they want us to buy all American steel, or if there are other requirements that they have, and sort of the additional administrative work on that procurement side, but also the extra cost that ends up being. And then there's like an extra 30% on top of that of just like overall, it's about 30% to do the design. So there's a few different levels here. I think it's probably in total like 50 to 60% contingency once you add it all up.
That's good.
But some of that, some of that is real, right? So like we'll end up using that contingency.
So if you add the phase 3 treatment stuff, it comes to about 10 million. So the actual treatment is only about a third of the cost of the whole thing. Huh? Yeah, wow. I mean, it does seem like our system is old and it probably was due for overhaul anyway, but yeah.
No, we need a new
Yeah.
chlorination system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember after 9/11, the chlorine at locations was a big concern for, like, you know, as a terrorist, you know, attack or whatever. Is that still a thing? And is that one of the benefits of getting rid of this chlorine storage on site? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had, within the last decade, there was the plant up in Washington went down, and that, a lot of municipalities and water distributors were realizing that even if they had different distributors, they really had one source for concentrated hypochlorite. And so that was something that we considered when we were looking at the bulk hypochlorite versus the on-site generation. And I mean, you can buy that fancy salt at Lowe's or Home Depot. And you can keep a lot of it on site without triggering any hazardous materials reporting, or without it creating like a safety hazard for people. So it's easier to sort of buffer our needs.
I would say 9/11 triggered a requirement for water utilities. So water and wastewater utilities to do like risk assessments of their facilities. And that's something that's still in place. So we just recently, was it in June, wrapped up it's called the American Water Infrastructure Assessment. We did a risk assessment there of our facilities. That was an update from 5 years ago, and also worked on updating our emergency operations plan. And it looks at all of those, all sorts of different risks and what are the impacts to those risks. So we had to send something in June on that. So
To
the EPA.
to the state?
To the EPA.
To EPA. Okay, interesting.
So 32 million. I know, and one of our council goals is affordability, of course, right? So this has always been really, in my mind, one of the things that are at the forefront of this project is, you know, how are we managing ratepayer impacts? So the first 3 items or 4 items, I'll say, really are focused on the strategies on some of the long-term operational costs and some of the construction ways that we can maybe utilize some dollars on phasing the construction, but life cycle optimization. So, you know, Tanya mentioned how we're continuing to do pilot testing on the media to see, is it 5 to 7 years or is it 3 to 5 years? So there's a cost associated with that. So the longer we are able to use that media, the less frequent we have to replace that media. And that's going to be expensive. It's probably going to be about $500,000 every 5 to 7 years in terms of replacing that media. So we're looking at trying to figure that out and see what's the optimal time to do that. And then as part of the design, we're including energy efficiency components into there. You know, making sure that we're, you know, using efficient motors and drives that help us pump the water to make sure that we're not wasting electricity. We have a lot of in our system at our wells right now. We have a lot of old pumps and motors that aren't necessarily as efficient as what's out there now. And then this operational consolidation. You know, we'll see some cost avoidance there. I would say that, you know, we won't have to travel as much. So there's some cost avoidance. It's not necessarily savings, but maybe some cost avoidance. And then, you know, in terms of how we're paying for this, you know, we have a safe drinking water revolving loan fund that we got $6 million. The first phase, $3 million of that, the principal's forgiven. So it was basically a $3 million grant. We have 2 more safe drinking water revolving loan fund packages that we're working on. The one is focused on PFAS. I believe that's a $6 million loan, and my understanding now is like the $6 million is all forgivable, so basically a $6 million grant. And then the next piece is the rest of the work at the treatment facility, and the discussion that Tanya and Steve and I had with Oregon business folks several weeks ago was there's another $10 million package out there with a portion that will be forgivable that still needs to be sort of determined. So we're looking at using those. So the parts that aren't forgivable have a lower interest rate than the market rates. So there's a borrowing component. We're working with our rate consultants, FCS. They're sort of part of the team and the consultant team to look at like how are we funding this work? What's the impacts to the rates? And I think if you look back to May and June, we were forecasting 8% increases over the next 3 years for water to make sure that we have sufficient revenue to pay for the work. That might change. It could get better. It might get a little bit worse depending on where that is. But we're certainly looking at that. There's some settlement funding as well for this PFAS litigation that we're part of. I think we most recently got about $140,000 or $150,000 from one phase of this settlement. We're still working on some additional pieces. And then, we're looking to, do another legislative ask in the next session for some dollars. So we're looking at using those other sources of funds to reduce those impacts on ratepayers. So, any questions?
Questions? Nothing from Councilor Massey?
As you're thinking about just the horizon of what those increases might look like, when will you have a clearer picture, or when, I know you talked about multiple funding sources you'd pursue, but when would you come back to us to talk about that next?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we need to still do a little bit more work on design to sort of firm up some better estimates. We'll also know in probably January or February what the actual cost is for the raw water transmission line work that we're doing for both Stanley and the lower and upper treatment plant. So that will help us sort of fit those pieces to the puzzle. I think as we continue to, like I said, refine the project, I would say probably late winter, early spring of next year, we'll have a better sense. But, if we do at the next update, we can sort of target in on that and provide maybe some additional information as it relates to that.
I mean, we adopted 8% increase this year and another 8% next year, right?
Yep.
Yes.
I don't
Do
think
you
we foresee-
envision coming back this biennium for a change in that, or you're talking about the next budget cycle?
I don't anticipate at this biennium, but I can't promise that I won't.
Well, and I think we'll also need to track the trends of water usage with our new rate structure. So if that does incentivize reduced usage, that's great for some goals. But it also could, we'll have to track our revenue intake.
I think the other thing I'll mention too, because I would say about a year ago, we had a discussion about new development and are we seeing increased, consumption based on that new development? And at that time, it was like, no, not really. But I think we're starting to see some of that already. So new additional customers, you have a larger rate base. So that's helpful in terms of
Well,
impacts on
certainly,
rates,
you
right?
know, 275, units at Hillside, that's a lot of consumption, right? Yeah.
In particular, those 2 units on River Road, I think they're gonna be big users. I just wanted to say again, thanks to Steve for being here and welcome to your first council meeting. But I also, had we not done the reorg, we still would have had great collaboration between our capital engineering and our public works folks. But I think this project is a really excellent illustration of the benefits we're gaining by putting the folks who design our infrastructure and the folks who run it and maintain it and operate it together. And we are just so blessed with Tanya, Steve, and their teams. So you're seeing it in action and under Peter's amazing leadership. It's awesome.
Well, if no more, yeah, great work. And it is a lot. It's a lot to move, and I love that you're trying to get it, going in time to, not delay Tanya's other big project.
It has come up. They're like, we're gonna need to collaborate on this other one. I'm like, lucky for you, that's also me. But yeah, it's great. And Josh is our project manager for the raw water pipelines. And so having him right there has also been fantastic. So, yep.
Okay.
I just think, people need to realize this is our drinking water.
Yeah.
This is it's super important.
It is.
It's
It is.
running to the Willamette if we don't have drinking water, right? So I appreciate, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of heavy lifting. It's a lot of stuff that we don't understand. So I just really appreciate all the stuff you had to do prior to this to get to this point too. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it looks really well thought out and, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we don't have the annexation that was originally on, as I noted earlier. So I'll turn it over to the city manager to give a Parks IGA update.
Thank you, Mayor. So for anyone tuning in who's been following our efforts to negotiate agreements with the board of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District to both move the Milwaukie Bay Park Phase 3 project forward and amend our cooperative IGA, I wanted to just give a brief update of some things that have happened over the last month or so and talk about where we're going next. So back in June, the NCPRD board directed their staff to work with the NCPRD District Advisory Committee to give a recommendation to the board on how to proceed with this process. The DAC, the DAC, that committee met twice. They met first on July 8th and they met most recently on August 12th. And at that meeting, they passed a motion, and I'll just read it for anyone tuning in. It's that the DAC advised the board of directors to proceed with final negotiations to approve both the Milwaukie Bay Park IGA and cooperative IGA, taking into consideration the following issues: regional input into Milwaukie Bay Park final design and construction, vehicle parking and regional access needs, levy support district-wide, and settling maintenance and utility cost issues. If you've really been closely following this topic, you may have seen that we plan to have a work session topic today on parks operations and maintenance funding needs. Council chose to postpone that conversation, given the DAC's recommendation, until after the September 16th NCPRD board meeting. We would like to see what action and decisions they might make based on that DAC recommendation. Council has also decided to schedule a special session on September 22nd after that September 16th board meeting to discuss next steps. So if you are someone who loves following parks, I'd put September 22nd at 6:30 p.m. in your calendar, and we'll be getting that up on the city website shortly. Mayor and council, if there's any comments you'd like to make, floor is yours.
I guess as the representative from the council to the DAC, I want to thank the DAC members for really, throwing themselves into this decision and these two meetings and really trying to grapple with it. And I think I really do feel like I felt like this since I joined the DAC in 2023, that as much as some officials try to paint a division of, Milwaukie from the rest of the district advisory committee, or the rest of the district, the unincorporated areas, I really do feel like the DAC work well together as a team and really, bring bring their heart and bring, fairness, a sense of fairness and a sense of what is best for the district as a whole. I don't feel like there's a lot of anti-Milwaukie sentiment on the DAC. Not sure I would say that about certain other parts of the county government. But they did add these, it's reflective of what a hard question was put to them to sort of address these IGAs in a vacuum of information. And when they call for consideration of parking, consideration of, and whether there's been a regional discussion that included other than Milwaukie, there are some answers to those kind of things, but there was no process by which they could be educated on that. So it was frustrating to find myself having to vote, having not to go along with the DAC vote at that last meeting. But, it is where it is. And I do appreciate the time, the effort that they gave to really study it conscientiously. And we did do a dot exercise. And I thought there were some really interesting reflections by the DAC members that were reflected in that dot exercise. So I'll just leave it at that. Other folks? Anybody? Councilor Massey was also at the DAC meeting. I don't know if he wants to add anything.
You
Anyone?
summed it up well.
Okay. All right, well, if nothing else, then we can move on to we have an actual hearing tonight. Okay, a budget adjustment hearing. Okay, let's take a 2-minute break. Sorry. Yeah. The public hearing on the proposed budget adjustments is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the staff report, take public comments, deliberate, and consider adopting budget adjustments. Does any council member wish to announce actual or potential conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I will turn it over to Finance Director Michael Osborne.
Thank you and good evening, council. Picking up on what Peter said briefly before, in the vein of that budgeting is human and we're not always perfect. I am here to bring you the first budget adjustment for the fiscal year 2027 biennial budget. Much of this presentation was done last week at the budget committee, but I'm just going to summarize it. For fiscal year 2027, we adopted a budget on June 2nd, 2026. At that time, there was a couple factors that we were unaware of. One of which being we did not have an agreement with our biggest union, ASME, for collectively bargaining. Since then, we've negotiated a 3-year agreement with COLAs in year 1 of 3.5%, year 2, 3.1%, and year 3, 3.1%. We also had an adjustment for salary. We did a market comparison to similar cities our size in the area. Wanted to make sure that we're competitive in market and salary. So we did some adjustments through the agreement. And also we added an increase in Viva Health contributions. These are FSA type health contributions. And we also allowed for some quarterly vacation cash out. And these are just things that we had budgeted for a portion of them in the budget, but we didn't know where it would land up. So this is just truing up those, dipping into contingency to bring our budget in with the agreement that we settled upon. The other aspect is CIP work. At the end of fiscal year 25-26, all of the unfinished projects at the end of the year, all of that money in tune for anything that we haven't done goes into the beginning fund balance of the following year or of the upcoming year. And because when we were doing the budget in February and March, we didn't know how much those dollars would be. And we anticipated being completely done in the end of June. That didn't come to be. So in April, we did an assessment. And when we came to the budget committee, we figured the dollars that we needed to finish that work was $4.4 million. Since then, we've done an estimate, and that's $5.4 million. So this is stuff that we thought was going to be finished in the previous fiscal year, and we're taking and dipping into the prior years, or dipping into the beginning fund balance to reallocate these monies back to the projects. Is there any questions with that? Okay. Finally, we had some miscellaneous adjustments that we wanted to include. One is for library lockers at the community center. Another is we're rolling forward money that was unspent for the cooling center at the end of the previous year. And we're also moving $43,000 from stormwater to the tree fund to pay for some professional services that they're outlining. So moving ahead, the dollars that we need to take from contingency to add to this budget to pay for all the things I just mentioned are represented here. For general fund, for the 3-year bargaining, it's about $745,000. We also dip into utility funds of $290,000. For the CIP projects, it's a total of $5.4 million. And then 27 for the library lockers, 55 to roll over the money from the cooling center grants, and 43 to move from stormwater to the tree fund for some professional services that the Public Works has outlined. This is the same, which is in the staff report. This is the resolution I'm proposing tonight. There's an MRC piece to this that I believe we'll talk about after this meeting, but I'll pause here if there's any questions, concerns.
Any questions for Mr. Osborne? None from Councilor Massey? Okay.
Finally, I just want to give an update on the general fund forecast. As we went through in April and at the budget committee last week, these changes were incorporated into the budget in contingency. So there's not really that big of a change to the 5-year forecast. It does show us out of policy in this current biennium and it in the red in the next biennium. So it wasn't a rosy picture coming in, but it's somewhat the same picture after these budget adjustments because we're using contingency for that. With that, that's kind of all I had on this. If there's any questions.
Have we received any correspondence?
We have not.
Okay. Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed budget adjustments? No one online? Okay, so I'll skip that script. Any questions for staff? Last call for questions for staff. Okay, if there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public comment part of the hearing.
Move to close the public comment part of the budget adjustments hearing.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public comment part of the budget adjustments hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
Aye.
None heard. The public comment part of the hearing is closed. Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing a supplemental budget for the 2027, 2029. 2028 biennium. 27, 28.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution authorizing a supplemental budget for the 2027-2028 biennium. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. None heard. It passes unanimously. So I do have council reports and others may too. So can we adjourn and do the MRC and come back in?
You could recess the regular session.
Okay. Okay, that's what I'll do. I'm going to recess the regular session. I should learn this because they do this at the county all the time. That's right. Recess is one and convene as another. So I'm going to recess as the city council and convene as the Milwaukie Redevelopment Commission. I call the Redevelopment Commission to order. This meeting is being conducted by video conference. Since we don't have an audience, I don't think I'm going to bother reading all of this script. Is there any discussion about the June 16th, 2026 commission minutes? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the June 16th, 2026 Redevelopment Commission meeting minutes.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the June 16th, 2026 Redevelopment Commission meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. The minutes are approved unanimously. And so I will turn it over to Mr. Osborne for the budget adjustment.
Thank you again, Mayor. I am proposing a budget adjustment for the MRC in the amount of $290,500. This is to capture for, as we went through and did the collective bargaining agreement, management follows with ASME, and in that we have 3 employees that touch the MRC. Joseph Briglio, who's the executive director, Sierra William Fox, the Economic Development Director, I'm sorry, Sierra, and then
Sierra
Adam.
got married and I can't remember which is the new last name versus the old last name.
I think it's
And then
Fox.
a portion of Adam Moore's salary for parks. So those three, their portion of this comes out of the MRC, and that's the $290,500, which we are taking from contingency and the prior beginning fund balance to pay.
Okay. I take it there was no correspondence on this one either?
Correct.
Okay.
We've gotten no emails and no comments.
Okay. So any questions for Mr. Osborne? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing a supplemental budget for the 2027-28 biennium.
I second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the resolution authorizing a supplemental budget for the 2027-2028 biennium. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. None heard. It passes unanimously. Are there further MRC reports?
No.
No? Okay. In which case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn the commission meeting.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the commission meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The commission meeting is adjourned. And we reconvene as the city council to move on to council reports. Thank you, Mr. Osborne. So council reports. Who would like to start? Anybody can go?
Oh, I just wanted to say an official welcome to a few new shops and businesses on Main Street. So this weekend, there was the soft open for Sadie's on Main. And then their grand opening is tomorrow with ribbon cutting. So if anyone has a hankering to cut some ribbons, head down there. I believe it's at 4:00. And then I also wanted to say congratulations to my neighbors and now Main Street neighbors, Bo and Lisa Bersaud, sorry, close neighbors. They just opened up Bridge City Improv, and boy, they came in hot. A whole weekend of awesome improv activities down there, and they're still smiling after it. So if you have not gone down to see a show, please put it on your dance card. Thanks.
I will absolutely second that. I went to their first show and I heard, actually, I think Hamid Shabata Bennett was going to go every night. He was going to go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yeah. Good for him. Good for him. It was really fun. I highly recommend it. And we are going to do the next round of business. They're coming, the Brousseaus, and I'm going to invite Cora and Corey tomorrow, but we're doing our next round of business introductions on the October 20th meeting, which is the next night we discuss our ED goal. So I thought that was a good night to do that. Okay. Other council reports? Council President, you got anything on C4 or anything else?
I've got one thing to share with you all. So I got an email asking for us if we would be interested in submitting a voter's pamphlet statement in support of the NCSD bond. I included it in the packet. This is a slightly revised version. It has the correct bond number. We were able to get that back. That was assigned since I last sent out the last one. And it has some slightly altered language on HVAC after I got some feedback from them. This bond does not increase taxes at all on current residents. It's a maintenance of our current bond. And I think as an element of like good partnership with our school district, we can talk a little bit in a voter's pamphlet statement about some of the different improvements that are coming to Milwaukie schools. So that's what is spelled out in the third paragraph there. My question to you all is this something that we all would be willing to, I included all our names, maybe preemptively down below. Is this something that we all would be willing to sign on to and submit? And if it is something that we were willing to submit, would we all be willing to chip in $100 to be able to cover the cost of the voter's pamphlet statement submission?
Is it $500?
It's $400. So someone can
$400.
get off scot-free.
Yeah, I thought it was like $250 or something. Wow. Thoughts?
Yeah, I don't mind. I got an email from them as well in support, and, yeah, I'm all for it.
I mean, I
I'm
think
willing to support.
it's a well-written letter. It's a pretty simple, good voters pamphlet kind of statement. So, yeah, I'm in support of it too.
You might know this better from just your time on council, and Scott might know this. Is there a problem with us spending our council budget to split the cost of a voter's pamphlet statement? Is that allowed?
Take it out of our giant paycheck every month.
Sure. You're throwing your giant paycheck
Well,
everywhere.
you haven't vetted that question with anybody?
I haven't, no, so I
Okay.
guess I'm asking Scott now.
We have not done it in my experience. We have paid our personal money to do it in the
Okay.
past.
That's best
So-
practice. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come and collect them later then.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Then we won't spend council funds, but we're good to sign on to this then.
Okay, great. C4?
C4, I was going to share this with the e-bike update. There have been conversations that Emma alluded to about e-bike ordinances across different cities. I think there's also conversations happening at the state level about any kind of model code they could create for cities to be able to help regulate this. I can say that I've heard back from a few folks and was actually emailing back with Edmund a little bit about this. So on our e-bike path that we have, or on our bike path on 43rd Avenue, they do a good job of clearly delineating the bike facilities and the pedestrian facilities. And at the very least, it's not the comprehensive fix that we might want, but in the short term, having some delineation of space might be good. So I was helping Edmund put together a spot grant to be able to do that on some of our unmarked facilities. And that is something that was kind of surfaced at C4. Are there any placemaking things that you can do in addition to code? So hopefully that might be an interim thing that we could look at when we think about making our facilities safer for all users.
Well, that's an interesting conversation to have when you think about the trolley trail, which obviously is only a little bit of it is in Milwaukie, but there's a lot of, I mean, it's come to the DAC before, the issue of speeding on the trolley trail and unsafe conditions for pedestrians. So, I mean, it's good that Commissioner's office happens to be on the C4, as well as, their liaison to the DAC. So maybe he will want to do that on the more one NCPRD to do some of that on the trolley trail. It'll be interesting to watch. Okay, other things? Nobody else? All right, well, I do have a few. I've been to a lot of meetings since we last met. So SHS, Supportive Housing Services. I will just flag, I've been in several meetings. The Metro mayors have had their own meetings as well as participating in the SHS Oversight Committee. There is a conversation going on there about the desire of cities to have funding for services that the cities provide that either facilitate housing placement, sort of navigation services, what we do in our library, what our behavioral health specialists do, as well as some of the cleanup things from campsites, et cetera. So there's a little discussion percolating there at SHS. A lot of the counties, maybe, there are people at the table who don't like that and who also jump. It's kind of frustrating. They jump to the conclusion that you say you want to fund some public safety type things. They jump to the idea that you're sweeping camps as opposed to you're hiring behavioral health specialists to help your police department. with populations that need the help. So I do think there will be an ongoing conversation this fall. I mean, it's all sort of focused on getting ready for the ask that's going to come of, the going to the voters probably in 2028 is what they're saying, in like November 2028, when they are looking to go to the voters to extend the SHS funding. But the mayors are pretty resolute about wanting city costs to be factored in and not having to go through the counties. So it will be an interesting several months ahead.
Mayor, can I ask a question about that? Is the idea that that would be factored into the local implementation plans for the counties, or that there would be a separate carve out for plans with the funding that would go to the cities?
I think that's all yet to be determined. I think that's all yet to be determined. I think the first step is going to be the cities trying to consolidate sort of what it is. I mean, Hillsborough and Beaverton have kind of done this already, consolidated what they have spent funding on. And to be fair, some of the bigger cities have actually built shelters, have done, bigger things than what we have done in Milwaukie. So the list is not the same in every city by any means, but trying to sort of consolidate a list of the kind of things that cities are spending on. Yeah. And figuring out how, again, I think it's not like an expectation that next year there will be direct funding allocations to cities, but an expectation of that the next iteration of SHS will be crafted to allow for that.
And then are they adjusting the oversight model to include more representation from cities?
Well, yeah, the new oversight committee has a representative from each county, a city representative from each county, and an alternate. So I'm the alternate. Joe Buck is the rep for Clackamas County cities, and Mayor Wilson is also on it. So there's actually 4 mayors on it with 3 alternates. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Also with the Metro mayors, Kelly Brooks came to talk to us at our last meeting about what's going on with transportation funding after the demise of the last transportation bill. She said there are 6 working groups in different modes of transportation or different elements, and they are studying 3 scenarios. They're supposed to be setting priorities of how they would prioritize projects under 3 different scenarios. One where there's no new money, one where there's an adjustment for inflation, and one where there's a 20% increase. She said that the governor's office is committed to protecting the 50-30-20 split. I hope that we see that bear out. And also I will note that ODOT has a survey out now online. I just happened to see it today. She had told us that it was coming. It's an interesting survey. It doesn't take very long. I highly recommend that people take it. It's a kind of an unusual survey because it just picks like 6 broad categories of function. So like replacing aging infrastructure and transit and bike and ped. And so there are 6 overall, and they ask you to rank them. And then they ask you to allocate out of 100%, out of $100, how many dollars go to each one. So it's an interesting survey. I encourage people to take it. The governor's advisory committee or whatever they are is supposed to come out, I think, with a recommendation in September, October, sometime soon. And then lastly, I wanted to report on the Oregon Mayors Association conference, which was in Ashland 2 weeks ago. First off, as you guys may recall, every year or every 2 years ahead of the session, LOC sends out a ballot to help prioritize what should be like the top 5 priorities for the for the legislative session. And so we were told to expect to get that next month. That there were 27 things on the ballot, which is longer than it usually is. But that we would get that to discuss and submit our votes next month. Just a little bit of interesting, quirky thing about Ashland, which was our host city. Ashland's charter requires them to have a city band. And they do have a city band. And it plays 8 times. They had a small segment of the city band come play the national anthem at our opening of our conference, but they have a bigger city band that's maybe like 25 or 30 people, and they play every, Thursday night or whatever weeknight it is all summer long. So I thought it was pretty cool that they have a city band. One of the things I heard there, which I definitely want to dig into more, and I'm not sure. Anyway, one thing I heard in one of the sessions there was that volunteering has a demonstrated effect on helping youth combat depression. And so connecting youth to volunteer opportunities seems like we've always struggled with how do we get more youth on our committees, et cetera. But I just wanted to put that out there as something to think about. Ashland is funding incentives for electrification, and they also have a team of trained volunteers that go around and give homeowners advice on weatherization and electrification and what incentives are available, both federal, state, and local, which I thought was a really cool program. The mayor of Ashland brought 4 other mayors from Rogue Valley cities, and they all got to talk about their one top thing that they wanted to celebrate in their community, or something that they wanted to brag about. And I thought it was very interesting. The mayor of the town of Rogue River started talking about her police chief and how great he was and how he had come in and really turned the department around, et cetera, et cetera. And as she's talking about him and she put his picture up there on the screen, I was like, oh, that's Dave Rash. He was a captain with the Milwaukie PD. He retired in about 2018 or 2019, just before COVID. And when he left Milwaukie, after he retired in Milwaukie, he went to Hubbard as their police chief. And I didn't know that he had gone on down to Rogue River, but he went to Rogue River and he was actually named the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police Chief of the Year last year. So kudos to former Captain Rash. That was really cool. There was a lot of talk about OGEC and the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, and there was supposedly a meeting, I guess last week, and it was a public meeting, so I should look it up online, but a meeting with LOC, the Association of Oregon Counties, the Special Districts Association, and the community colleges all had a big meeting on the OGEC interpretation of the law. And I will say that Patty Mulvihill from the LOC gives a really pretty persuasive presentation about how it really is not the law. It is OGEC's interpretation of the law that changed, and that kind of has gone too far. A couple of other things about legislation, or about the legislature. There was a comment that this is from the LOC lobbyist, that a high percentage of the legislators in Salem now have never served in a time of a cuts environment, and that it's going to be a rough road ahead because they're not used to having to deal with a cuts environment. Fantastic. And the other thing I heard, and I'll believe it when I see it, is that there's going to be a pause in new housing legislation next term. Yeah, that was my, yeah.
Think about it.
Anyway, so I think that's the end of my council reports. Anything else anyone has for the good of the order?
Yeah, here's an idea. Somebody should do like an office of Salem. You know the show The Office? That would be hilarious. That's literally.
Okay.
Is this where we move to adjourn?
Yeah, I think you can. No one has said there's anything else, so yes, I think.
Okay, so moved, Mayor.
It's been moved. Has it been seconded?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard? We're adjourned.